Welcome to an Out of the Park 24 tutorial on tips for the first year MLB player draft. Drafting is a bit of a, I guess you could say, a nebulous thing. There's really no set of rules that you should always follow for every pick, because the answer to so many of the questions that I get or questions people ask about drafting is, well, it depends. So in this video, I'm going to try to walk through some of those it depends scenarios and lay out some loose guidelines I follow to make picks, and also go through some picks to talk through the thought process, because there is so much where the answer is, well, it depends. We're at the 2025 first year player draft. We are controlling the Los Angeles Angels, and the reason I've done 2025 is just like to get ahead a couple years, so I'm not biased by maybe like names I know. I don't really know any players that are 2025 draft eligible. Maybe a name or two I know will pop up, but I try to take that sway out of it and try to just only draft based off of the info in Out of the Park and not info I know in real life. So as we jump into this, just real quickly, if you are able to support the work and time that goes into this channel, I'd appreciate if you click the link in the description, go to my Patreon page, make a $5 monthly donation. Thank you. But regardless, thanks for watching. So to start, let's talk about some guidelines for drafting. And like I said, I'll just pull up this draft pool so you guys can look at it while I talk. You can look at some of these guys out here like Donovan Jeffrey. Some guidelines. So my basic hierarchy of players I consider, especially in the early rounds, is like tier 1 college bats. They're generally the safest picks. They're further developed than high school bats, so they have a higher floor, sometimes a lower ceiling, but not always the case. And also, they aren't pitchers, right? Pitchers are really risky as prospects. Some might even say there's no such thing as a pitching prospect. And so I am much more hesitant to draft pitchers than hitters, especially with like first, second round picks. So tier 1, the college bats. Tier 2, college pitchers and high school bats. I think a lot of the college pitchers in this game you can generally get, and I'll talk through this more in a minute, but you can generally get college pitchers with a decently high floor. Now, the ceiling isn't that high, but honestly, if I can grab 4 or 5 guys in maybe rounds, maybe not 4 or 5, but if I can draft multiple college arms kind of like 4th round or later who are pretty developed to where I think they can skip rookie ball, maybe go straight to high A, and be in AAA within 2 seasons, like that's a pretty solid pick for me. And I noticed it first in Out of the Park 23 or more in Out of the Park 23 that you can find maybe in those rounds, I don't know, let's just call it loosely 4 through 8. I had a lot of success finding college arms who maybe, their control, like all their scouting things were like a ceiling of 50, but they had already developed a lot of things up to like a 40, right? So maybe they were going to come in and be, their ceiling at the time they're drafted might be like, this guy might be a long reliever on my major league team. He might be able to fill in as a 5th starter. And maybe every so often one of those guys will take a big leap forward and become a better player. But I love having high floor college arms out of college in my system. And I noticed the ability to do it a lot more in Out of the Park 23 than future versions in those like rounds 4, let's just say rounds 4 through 8. So that's one thing that I pay more attention to. So that's tier 2, college pitchers and high school bats. High school bats, you can get some guys with some ridiculously high ceilings, but the floor is so low. I draft high school bats early. I prefer a college bat if I'm not selling out on the ceiling too much, right? Like I'm not going to draft like a guy with a 45 potential college bat just because he's already near his max potential over like an 80 potential high school bat, So it always depends. But tier 3 then is high school pitchers. I really shy away from them. They're so far away from the majors. There's so much that can go wrong. There's so many injuries they can run into. Of course, I have drafted high school pitchers before in the first round with high draft picks. I do it, but they are in tier 3 with the loose guidelines. I would say next guideline is look at work ethic and intelligence. You can see here I have a draft hitters filter, and you can sort by work ethic and intelligence and find guys who maybe have high work ethic and intelligence. I think this is especially helpful in the later rounds when it's a bunch of dudes who have serious flaws to their game. Now, early picks, I'll shy away from low work ethic and low intelligence. I have drafted guys with low work ethic and low intelligence in the first round, but it's something I'm really looking at, and a major mark against a guy if he does have that, especially with a high early pick. But in the later rounds, when you're just hoping like to draft a guy who's probably going to just be minor league filler, but maybe he can hit for you, and by hit I mean maybe you'll hit on the pick and he'll suddenly become like a major league prospect with a couple of years in your system. High work ethic, high intelligence guys are more likely to become those dudes. Another thing I consider is range. I like to know, this is on my draft hitters filter too, infield and outfield range, because I just like a quick glance, like, okay, can this guy play defense anywhere for me? It's really like strictly a DH type, because like I don't want to draft 5th overall like a high school bat who's already just a DH or maybe a first baseman. Even if he's an 80 potential, like I would really shy away from those guys. Shout out to Bob Maldonado, my out of the park 21 international free agent signing, who became a legend, who I believe I signed as a first base DH guy only, and he became one of the best hitters in franchise history for an extended period. So don't take this to me say don't ever sign those guys, don't ever draft those guys, but just, man, be careful drafting a guy who you're relying solely on his bat, right? Because if you're a bat only and you draft him at 18, all of a sudden at 21, 22, it's like, this guy is maybe a league average hitter, or maybe a bench bat who has no glove. That hurts. That can hurt. So those are some of my loose guidelines that I'd follow. Let's jump into the draft here. Let's just start the draft. The first pick, the Detroit Tigers. I know them. Let's see who they're going to pick and just look at this pick. So they picked Caden Martin, who is a college bat. Don't love that he's only a corner outfielder. Can he play any infield? Not really. OSA. So he's an 80 potential, his home run power is real, and he's a fly ball hitter. For a 21-year-old, this current contact and current avoid Ks is really low, but a pretty high ceiling on this player. Let's look at who else was out there. That's a high school guy. I would probably first start by sorting by college batters. Like this guy, I think he's 23, which is certainly a knock against him, but he's got a pretty high ceiling, and his floor is already so much higher than Martin's. Now, Martin, I think, does clearly have the higher ceiling, but Backus is a comparable player, is in the running, I think, because of the fact that his floor is already higher, and you're not giving up a ton of ceiling. Who did the mock draft have going first? Caden Martin. Okay. Where did Backus go? Nowhere. Basically nowhere. Is he over here somewhere? So, see, they don't even have Backus going in the first round that I'm seeing on my quick scan here. Did I miss him? Man, that's really something. I think Backus is a good get for somebody, but I'm, again, just not even seeing him here. Maybe I'm just missing him. I wish there was a Control F feature on the mock draft here, so you could do that. So I could search for him quickly rather than just scanning with my old eyes. So second overall mock draft, Ethan Holiday. This is a pretty fun pick. Is this guy related to Jackson? So Orioles legend, Jackson Holiday. He can play. I'd probably have him at second base rather than a third base or a shortstop. He could also maybe fill in as the outfield. This guy has a pretty high ceiling, but a really low floor. That's a risky pick. Max Williams is a junior college guy, he's a college junior coming out at 20. Oh, well, he's almost 21. Don't love that as a third overall pick. Maybe this is just like a weak draft class. And here's a guy I would definitely not take 4th overall based off of the pitcher, Cam Caminiti. because, like I said, I'm just not going to take a high school pitcher 4th overall very often. But look at it. He's a two-way player with some serious potential. So that would cause me to consider him higher up. And again, I'm just talking through these guys, let you know what I do and don't like about them. It's always relative to what's available. I don't see a surefire guy here that I'm like, oh, this is definitely who I'd take 1st overall. So I think Caden Martin is a totally defensible pick here, and probably the right pick as we're looking at some of these other guys projected to go early. Michael Gupton is, man, it's just such a low floor here for a guy who's 21 already. Micah Matthews, about what you'd expect for a floor at 19. So let's see what the rest of like the top 3 does here. The Rockies, they take Ethan Holiday, so really high ceiling here, guy who can play in the infield for you, and a lot of risk paying $11 million to a guy with this low of a floor, but I think this is based off of the draft pool. I think this is a totally reasonable pick. And then let's see, Miami is going to pick Micah Matthews, who we talked about, 19-year-old, who has some serious pop in his bat. He's a corner outfielder. He can maybe fake it for you in the infield too, at 3rd base if you need him to, 1st base. So I've got no problems with that pick. I think that's fine. Let's look at the whole. Let's look at the whole hitter pool. You've got some. Wow, this guy wants a $13 million bonus. You've got some really good high school hitters. Honestly, this might be a draft where I go high school hitter early because there's not a lot of college hitters jumping off the page. Donovan Jeffrey is a fun pick, man. Like, he's going to be a 1st base type for you. Maybe can play corner outfield, but if he's like a Bob Maldonado, though, if he could become one of the best hitters in the game if he develops. So let's finish out the top 5, actually. Pittsburgh picks Luis Aiden Almeida, and this is a good pick. I'm good with this pick. Really, really high ceiling. He's not too limited defensively. He could play 2nd base for you just fine. And he can play corner outfield too. That guy's got multiple positions that he can play for you. I think that's a solid pick by the Pirates of Pittsburgh. And next, the Nats pick Jacob Kendall, who we talked about. This is the guy who wants $13.5 million. Hey, if you can afford it, if you can swing it, that contact and power potential is obscene. And at 5th overall, that's a pretty good get for you. And I'm saying that within the context here that there's not a lot out there in terms of the type of bat that I'd prefer, and that's the really developed college bat. Because like Gray Brannon here is fine, but his floor, his ceiling is only so high, and his defensive profile sucks. It doesn't suck; it's just not great. So yeah, there's not a lot out here in terms of the type of bats that I prefer, in terms of like can't miss guys or guys you can't pass up. So I think drafting college or not from tier 1 of my college bats here is totally defensible. I have no problem with some of the picks made here. They're not ideal picks, but they're the right picks given the draft pool. So like I said, it depends. So let's go to Los Angeles. Let's go to our pick, see what's out there. I generally start with my scouting director recommendation. Donovan Jeffrey, I just told you why I don't like to take high school bats, and I told you why I don't like to take guys who are basically 1st base DH types. But with what pick are we? 16th overall pick. This is a heck of a pick. Like, his eye and discipline and home run power outstanding. He only wants $700,000 for some reason, which is another thing you want to consider is how this player fits into your budget. They don't give him high work ethic, high intelligence, but he's a baseball rat. Oh, he does have high work ethic. Oh, you know what? This is a sim where I didn't have all the settings set up, so the personality stuff isn't on the page here. But no big deal. This is just a sample page. And we've got work ethic and intelligence here. We've also got Carter Smith, another high work ethic, high intelligence guy with a 35 range. I really like this, or 65 range, sorry. I really like Smith a lot here. Does he have any outfield range? Yeah, so he could play a strong 2nd base. He could be fine at 3rd base. He could be a decent shortstop. He can play the corner outfield. I think you really got to consider him over Donovan Jeffrey. He's you're basically looking at the 75 versus the 65 home run potential. He's also wants slot and not the 700,000, so that's another thing that you're going to want to consider. But this fielding, I really value fielding, and Carter Smith could be a really solid glove for you, whereas Donovan Jeffrey, you're just depending on his bat pretty much. Both can kind of fake it in the corner outfield positions, but Carter Smith is like a future starting second baseman, whereas Donovan Jeffrey is a first base DH. So, this would be a difficult pick. I think the context of the draft slot matters a lot here, and we have a ton of money, so we're not too concerned about that. So we don't necessarily need to concern it. I think Vaughn Necker here or Neckar, not sure how he says it, does not really have a defensive home. I do not prefer him over Jeffrey or Smith. Justice DeYoung is a low intelligence guy who is limited defensively. Don't like him. It's a fine catcher. Yeah, for me, I think this, we'll look at pitchers too. I don't have a draft pitchers thing because I just generally just look at the pitching potential here. I could make a filter, but I just do it this way. I don't know that there's a pitcher out here that I love enough to take over one of those two bats. We can see, you can also ask your scouting director, all right, if I were to take a pitcher, who would I take? Caminiti is the guy who he recommends, who is the two-way player. Forgot about that. And what can he play defensively? I mean, he's basically like a left field, right field DH. Yeah, I might consider Caminiti because you're basically getting two players. Could he develop as a hitter or could he develop as a pitcher? Yeah, I think I might actually go Caminiti here. Although this changeup worries me. He might just be a reliever. This changeup might not develop. Probably won't develop unless something's changed in the development engine over the last couple of years that I just haven't noticed. But generally this changeup is going to not develop. So actually I'm not going to draft Caminiti because I don't trust him as a pitcher. Here's a 70 potential stuff, 35 potential movement guy. Yeah, I'm good on all these guys. I'm going to pass on all them. I'm going to go back and I think I'd go with Carter Smith over our guy Donovan Jeffrey. I think either pick is defensible. I think either pick makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Oh, do I not have intelligence here in the? Thought I did. So. Oh, I see what I did. I accidentally have two filters here. There it is. Yeah, I think I'd go Carter Smith. Now, where were Smith, if we can... Carter Smith is projected to go 19th overall. Donovan Jeffrey, I saw him earlier when I was scanning. I feel like he was down further. Yeah, they have Jeffrey not projected to go until us in the second round. So, yeah, I'm going to go Donovan Smith. Carter Smith, not Donovan Jeffrey. His bonus demand, it's actually only 2.6 it says here. All right, so we're going with Carter Smith. Let's see if Donovan Jeffrey's still out there. He is still out there. So yeah, here we take Donovan Jeffrey, and we're extremely happy. Very off-brand that I'm taking two college bats, but we're going to do that. So next... Oh, this catcher's still out there. Interesting. He's not a great catcher, though. Yeah, too limited of a defensive profile for me to draft him. Gray Brannon starts to creep into the conversation here. That's a really well-developed bat. I bet he could jump in to Double-A. Yeah, he's an average player in the Eastern League. This is a really high-floor play, which might go nicely with some of the low-floor, high-ceiling plays that we've made. And if I was doing a real draft, I would take more time to look at. I would know the pool in advance, and take more time. So I'm just kind of going over some of the higher options here. But I think this would be a good place to take a Gray Brannon. Don't love his defensive profile, but I think it would be a good place to take him to complement some of the higher risk picks that we made earlier. Oh, Brennan does have low work ethic. That sucks. Let's see, who does a guy recommend for pitchers at this point? Cameron Odom, a high school arm. Can we look at college pitchers? Because let's look at pitching potential. So this is the exact type of guy that I was talking about. I don't know if I want to take him in the 3rd round. That feels a little early, but this is the range in the draft where I would take them. I think Austin Ledbetter is a nice pick here. Really high floor. He can come right into your system. Now, extreme fly ball might scare me off because I get scared off by extreme fly ball pitchers all those years running Orioles teams in Camden Yards before the renovations. But, look how much further along he is than Andrew Benke. William Ross is another guy I would consider here. Look, I know this isn't like a huge upside play, but I like to make some safe picks too. As safe as like a draft pick is, because they can go right into your system. And man, in my Royals sim, I did it in an offline sim too. I felt like I had a never-ending option of cheap, controllable arms to throw into my bullpen as long men, fill in as 4th and 5th starters, because I just drafted 3 or 4 of these guys each year, and it was so helpful to just have a few spots on my pitching staff filled in, because pitching is so expensive to go out and address other ways. So I'm going to draft Austin Ledbetter here. I'm not sure that I'd actually draft him this early if I were actually drafting this as a sim I'm doing, but I would love this pick in like the 4th, 5th, 6th round. This is the exact type of college arm that I was talking about that I started targeting way more in last year's Out of the Park than I had in previous versions. So let's go to let's skip a few rounds. What round should we go to? Let's go to like the 8th round. All right, we're going to auto draft until our pick. Here we are in the 8th round. Look, Benke's still out here in the 8th. A lot of these college arms still out here. Like, this is a totally fine 8th round pick. Thomas Little, he might never reach the majors for you, but if he gets a little bump in stuff or control, movement. Now he's 23, he's almost 24, so that might not happen. He might just like flame out in AA, like max out in AA for you. But like Drew Beam, these, I won't belabor the point too much because I talked about it with Mr. Yellow Ledbetter, but look for these guys in your draft. Let's see who my scouting director recommends with this pick. Nathan Fink, a right field college bat. Yeah, no, I would take all those pitchers I just looked at over here over him. Let's look at some of these guys. Don't like his defensive profile. Don't like his defensive profile. That's a fine college bat, I guess. Oh, right here. This is our guy, Cam Hill. Look how high the ceiling is with power. This is a pick I would make in the 8th round. I'd go for this like high ceiling play. Yeah, he's 22, and he probably is going to strike out too much to ever be a major league player. He might not have good enough contact skills to become a major league player, but if he does improve those enough to be a major league player, you're looking at a really good corner outfield bat for yourself. Cam Hill. Next question. Let's look at these. Yeah, Cam Hill is the easy pick here. Oh, Ryan Strachan. That's a decent pick for this point in the draft. So let's pick Hill. And all right, who is our scouting drafter ring? Oh, this guy's still out here. I really like that guy for this point in the draft. We've got a college reliever. Yeah, I'm not interested in taking a college reliever. Now, he could become a starter. He's got the 40 stamina. He's got 3 pitches, but that fly ball pitcher with that movement, I'm steering clear of that guy. I think Strachan here, Ryan would be a good pick, even if he doesn't have a good defensive home. He's not terrible, but he could play the corners of the diamond for you in the infield and the outfield. We've got a 60 outfield range guy here. Are there any like huge range guys out there? Max infield range left is 60. Max outfield range is 65. Don't love that. So I think I would go with Ryan here. or maybe like one of the college arms. Oops, I'm on the wrong thing. And then we change our filter. Yeah, I think Banky here. I think depending on what picks we had made so far, since it did skip some rounds, and depending on our system, you always draft best player available, but when, as a tiebreaker, you can kind of think about what you need in your system. I like Barry Smith here, Justin Barry Smith. I think best of these pitchers, but a bunch of solid college arms for this point in the draft. But I'd go back to the batters. I'd go back to Ryan Strachan, and I'd pick him. That's my pick there. So let's skip ahead some more rounds. I hope, like, as you can see, like, I gave those guidelines up front, but then, like, it does just depend on so much that happens, right? Like, I ended up drafting 2 high school bats. I would have strongly preferred college bats if all things were even, but it just always depends. There weren't a lot of good high school bats out there. So now we're into the 16th round, which is, we'll just call these the late rounds. Scouting director is recommending a college starting pitcher. Yep, I love this as a 16th round pick. This guy, if he develops this stuff and control to the top of his ability. Now the changeup, I don't love that, but this is a dude. He's a dude who you could possibly squeeze more out of if he develops a little bit in your system. He's 21, not quite 22, but you've also got some hitters out here. Tanner Waldrop, that's a great pick for this point in the draft. Brantley Bamberg, I'm not concerned with my 16th round pick that he doesn't really have a defensive home. Let's just go out there and get the best player available, right? That's kind of the strategy now here. Let's go back to our draft hitters. But another thing that I would look at here is players who are high work ethic, high intelligence. Like, we've got a high work ethic 40 overall guy who can actually play catcher. That's a really nice pick for this point in the draft. He could actually play catcher for you. I don't really want to play anywhere else. He could be a catcher or first baseman. And we're in like the 16th round, and he's got high work ethic and a decent bat. Totally fine pick here. High work ethic, high intelligence. I think you could just draft high work ethic, high intelligence players in this point in the draft, and that is 100% defensible. Now, I wouldn't recommend it be Shane Baumgarten here with the other options available, but just kind of scanning the guys who have both, right? But I would pick Ethan Anderson here. I think that's a solid pick. He can be a catcher for you, even if he just ends up being a minor leaguer. He's a decent catcher. He's got good work ethic, and he's got a decent ceiling already for a catcher. So that's who I would go with. Let's take one more. Let's take a look at one more of these like late round picks. He's recommending Derek Cease, who I'm not interested in. I'm not interested in this recommendation. Let's see if we wanted a pitcher who he recommends. Rodriguez? Yeah, dude. We looked at this guy earlier. He would be totally fine. The only knock is this changeup. He might just be a bullpen arm, and he's not very good. But, man, if we can tap into just another level and stuff or control, all of a sudden you're looking at a guy who could maybe be a long reliever for you. I think he could be a AAA depth arm for you in like 2 years, which, like, not every pick is going to be like, oh, this guy might alter the path of my franchise. Some guys are like, oh, this is good AAA depth if the poop hits the fan and I have 7 pitchers on the IL. When this guy's 23 and he's developed, might be a decent option for me. So that's kind of things you want to think through here as you get into the later rounds, is like, could this guy potentially reach the major leagues for me and contribute in a pinch if I need him to? Because there's not a lot left here, I think Rodriguez or a similar college arm is the play here based off of those bats we just looked at. Let's just make sure we're not missing a major guy here. Let's see, Rodriguez is down there. So I don't like that 35 movement. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Matt Noonan, another guy I'd pick. 17th round, sure. I would take this guy in the 17th round. He's probably going to hop right, to like high A maybe? Oh, no, he's not going to go to high A. Low A maybe? Maybe. I'd probably actually start him in rookie ball, just give him a few starts. He only throws 88 to 90. This guy's probably never going to reach the major leagues, but he also might, which is the most generic statement I could ever say. you can't rule out that this guy could be a major league player for you, or at least like maybe a solid starter in AAA for you. So that's the end of our draft tutorial. I hope running through all those different scenarios was helpful. If you have questions, feel free to leave them. I'll try to get to as many comments as I can. And, of course, like, feel free to jump in and disagree or say what you like to do in drafts, because this is not an exact science. And like I've said multiple times in this video, like, there's so much context that things depend on, as you saw with me not being able to find a college bat that I wanted in the first 2 rounds, even though that's the type of picks I prefer. So thank you guys for watching. Again, if you enjoy this content and you're able, please go sign up for the Patreon. I'd appreciate it. But regardless, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you guys in the next video.